Hey everybody, this is insaneintherainmusic here to debut a new section or segment on the channel, which I'm gonna call Insane in the Q&A. I have the fortune of having a username in which I can just take the last word, and replace with anything, and it'll still work. So like insane in the camera, insane in the microphone, insane in the softbox. A couple of days ago, I put out a request on social media for people to send me questions via Twitter and Facebook. If you are not following those pages, I highly encourage you do, because if in the event that I miss an upload, which I hope to God I don't, or there's something important you need to know, or you want to know when a new video is coming out without relying on YouTube subscription notifications, that is the place to do it, so the links are in the description. People have submitted their questions, and I have chosen a few to be answered on this episode. If you submitted a question you were not chosen, that does not mean I think you're a terrible person. It just means that I want to keep this video not super long, and I want to have multiple Q&As, so feel free to keep asking your questions. You can put questions in the comments below that you'd like me to answer, or even comment your own opinions on the stuff that I'm answering in this video, so let's get to it. Julia Henderson asks, what in your opinion are the advantages to studying music theory? Are there any disadvantages? Music theory is one of my favorite things in the world to study and know more about. I am personally fascinated with gaining more understanding and facility with how music works. Music theory is great for explaining why certain types of music evoke certain emotions, or explaining why a particular chord should or shouldn't go after one. Those are potential benefits. Another potential benefit is that it eliminates a lot of guesswork when you're writing arrangements, because some people I know who don't use music theory will tend to just pick a chord and then just play a couple other chords until they find one that works, and with music theory, you understand why those chords that you pick or that person stumbled upon work, why they work, and you can use that to limit your selection of possible chords to choose from, or melodies to choose from, or anything. As for disadvantages, some people might say that studying music theory squashes the magic of music or something like that, and that my music is supposed to defy the rules of music theory, and that's why it sounds good. And you can say that. Knowing when to break the rules of music theory is important, but you need to know the rules before breaking them in order to break them the right ways, I guess. So if you view music theory as a tool rather than a limitation to your music, I don't think there are very many negatives to it, because you can just choose not to use music, choose not to think of something in a theoretical standpoint if you'd like to. It's just a great tool that exists for helping you understand why music works and why it evokes certain emotions. OP_Suna writes, would you ever go back and redo any of your older covers? I have done plenty of redos of my old covers. I believe there are 3 versions of the Mirror B XD battle theme on this channel. One from my first year, and one from the summer of covers, and then one I think it was my 4th year back in last January that I uploaded, or the January before last January rather. I know there are at least two versions of Dire Dire Docks on this channel. Zelda's Lullaby maybe I've done more than once, I'm not sure about that. But there are certainly songs that I have done before that I would like to redo, and it's a matter of time before those are done. I'm not doing them because I'm worried that there will not be any more video game music to cover, because that's never gonna happen if games continue to be made. But it all just boils down to me being able to have a good creative idea for a song arrangement to do, and I don't like to limit myself by restricting myself from covering old music. Or old covers that I've done, rather. Mohmega asks, was music something you had to work super hard on to practice, or did it come naturally for you? Music, I did have to work quite hard for it. At college now, I'm usually practicing about 2 hours a day on saxophone, and I know it could be practicing more, but I find that that's a good amount of time for me to be practicing and also working on my YouTube projects. Back in high school, I did not practice quite that much, but I did have to work pretty hard and do a lot of transcribing and learning to get to the point where I am at now. The first day of jazz band in high school was my first day ever playing tenor saxophone, and that was quite the day. I had never played a B-flat saxophone before that. Before I had played alto and bari, so I was somewhat familiar with it, but it was really weird to finger a note and hear a different pitch come out than the one I was expecting. I had to learn how to play that pretty quickly. And then sometime in my first year, I had this solo on a funk song that the band played, and it was a pretty important solo, and I didn't know how to solo over funk at all, let alone solo over normal jazz changes, so I had to do a lot of transcribing and work to develop that vocabulary into my playing, and it's all that work that I did in high school and some of middle school has accumulated. I mean, of course, doing the work like in terms of transcribing and also making videos for this YouTube channel, it's all accumulated into bringing me where I am today. You can look back at any of my old videos, like from my first year, and you'll see what I was like back then. There's a particularly bad one of me playing Misty. I'm just gonna mention that and put the link in the description and not say anything more about it, because I'm sure you'll comment on that video and say bad things about me. Atsumu on Twitter writes, where or how did you study jazz performance? Any advice for classically trained dummies? You're the best, man. So I currently study jazz at the Berklee College of Music, which is a relatively well-known music school. I'm not studying jazz performance. I am studying, my major is called Contemporary Writing and Production, which basically entails doing home studio work and recording for, like, writing arrangements and recording for other clients, which is pretty much what I do now, so I'm just getting better at one of my individual strengths. I, of course, I was in jazz band in high school, and most of my learning there came from listening to records and also private teachers I had back at the time. Any advice for classically trained dummies? Find jazz that you'd like to listen to. There's a good chart on the Reddit, the jazz subreddit, that gives people good places to start and good albums to check out, and if they like those albums, it suggests other albums that are in a similar vein that you might like to listen to as well. DragonAirazel writes, what are some of your favorite chord progressions? Also, how do you determine when/how to change the original chord progression in covers? Favorite chord progressions? 2-5-1. It's a staple in jazz, and you know, it's everywhere, and I put it in my videos all the time. And it's not super flashy, it's just a subdominant dominant tonic way to very common progression in music. I do like tritone substitutions. I also do like modal interchange chords, as we call them at Berklee, which are flat 2 major 7, flat 3 major 7, flat 6 major 7, and flat 7 major 7, and flat 5 major 7 if you like the Locrian mode. Also, so when it comes to determining how to change chords or chord progressions in my covers, that's just if I have some sort of creative idea to do it. Learning music theory has allowed me to understand what other types of chords I could use if I wanted to change chords, but I try and keep the general structure of the song, or like the general dominant, the tonic type stuff. I try to keep that pretty much the same in most of the covers I do, because I think that sort of progression is pretty integral to people like recognizing and being able to follow along with the song. Bryan Collado writes, other than new games coming out and hearing the music, what inspires you to make a jazz cover on a certain song? So this goes to my arranging process. Usually what I do is I'll be doing some mundane or boring task, which is when most creative bouts or creative surges happen in the brain. I'll think of a jazz tune that I've been listening to lately, and I'll also be thinking of a video game tune, and I think, how would this video game song sound if I did it in the style of this jazz tune? For example, in my Lost in Thoughts All Alone cover, which was about a month ago at this point, I think, I thought to myself, what would Lost in Thoughts All Alone sound like if I did it in the style of Tigran Hamasyan, and like particularly his stuff on Mockroot. This is why I have a hard time if someone like told me to cover a specific song and I had no creative ideas for it, I would be stuck. Having a good creative idea I think is the hardest part of making an arrangement, and I'd like to do a full video explaining like my full arrangement process someday. Perhaps it'll be one of my future non-cover videos that gets uploaded to this channel, but that's generally my process. Farid Gulmahamad writes, what is your plans for the future for the channel as a professional musician? For the future of the channel, I'd like to keep making videos, of course, every week, and as you can see in this video, I'm trying out stuff branching out from just doing video game music covers. The reason I'm doing these Q&As is so I can communicate with you guys on a more direct, me talking to you kind of way. It's also inspired by people like SMG or Glenn Fricker, who does these really funny videos, and Adam Neely, who's one of my favorite music theory YouTubers, I suppose. I wanted to try expanding the channel, not moving away from video game music covers, but including things to help enrich the experiences of those who listen to my videos. Because I know a lot of you are also in jazz band in high school, or also musicians yourselves, and I think it would be very valuable for you to learn, or I like to, not trying to put myself on a pedestal, but I think I have a couple good things to say that you might be able to benefit from. So I just like to share the knowledge and maybe get some good knowledge from you guys in the comment section below. As a professional musician, I'd like to, keep improving my instrument and start gigging more, playing with friends around town and doing shows, stuff like that. I would like to do live shows with the Insane in the Rain music type stuff in the future. I've actually been working on doing some live backing tracks that do live looping. Sort of like how Jacob Collier does it. He'll walk up to an instrument and play a certain lick and it repeats without him having to use any sort of loop pedals or anything like that. I think that stuff is fascinating, and I'd really like to use that in a live performance in the future, like MagFest or something. Janne Sala writes, is there any instrument you'd like to start playing but haven't gotten the chance to? I'd like to learn how to sing someday. I just don't really have a practical use for it now. With the sort of arrangement ideas I'm coming up and the music I listen to tends not to be vocally based music, but I would like to learn how to sing someday and like the technical aspects behind it. I'd also like to learn how to play guitar and bass better, and you guys know I have a guitar, and I've also fixed the bass problem by picking up one of these for myself. This is Ibanez SR 505, I think. Yeah, 505. I'd like to be a better multi-instrumentalist in general, learning all the instruments of the rhythm section. Probably brass too. I'd like to get better at brass. I haven't really played much of that in my life. Alex Boguszewski, I don't know if I got that right. He writes, what has been your favorite and least favorite parts of college? More Metro music? What does your family think of your YouTube career? Favorite parts of college is just the immense amount of knowledge I'm getting from everything. I've learned so much about music theory in the past year, and it's just like all these little ideas I had before going to college are like now all culminating and coming together into like one unified theory, so I can really understand all this music stuff that I've been thinking about. Also just getting to play with a lot of really good musicians, that's always fun. Least favorite parts of college is probably meeting people. As a self-proclaimed introvert, I have a hard time in social situations meeting new people and forcing myself to get out there and jam with people who I'm not already familiar with, so it can be a little bit difficult, but that's something I'm working on, and I know as a musician is a very valuable skill to have, networking. So I'm working on that. More Metroid music, maybe once I play the games. I find that if I want to cover music from a certain series, I just need to play the games, and then I'll understand the music better. What does your family think of your YouTube career? I'm very fortunate that they are very supportive. They allow me to, play a saxophone in here basically whenever I want, as long as it's not like past midnight. And my grandma is a Patreon supporter, and so is my mom, so that speaks volumes to me. They're very supportive of all the stuff that I do, musically and on YouTube. MC_C writes, why did you pick to do jazz in the first place? Is there any specific reason, like some event from when you were young? The first ever experience I had with jazz was, it was in my middle school, we had this thing called Jazz Club, which was anybody could join. Jazz band was audition only, and Jazz Club, you could play any instrument you wanted, and I was a clarinet player at the time, so I was able to play alto sax parts transposed on the clarinet for most of it. And I think it was during that time that I really gained an affinity for jazz, and I started kind of liking the music I was hearing. My story for liking video game music, I think, goes back to, I think I saw a video games live concert when I was like in 2nd grade or something, and I don't remember this actually happening, but my mom tells the story of me watching it on this old CRT TV we had, and she tells me that I pointed at her and said, I want to do that, or something like that. And here I am, doing it on the internet in front of all your faces. Funny how things work out like that. Kristin writes, what is your favorite convention/event story? The most recent favorite one was at the Screenwave booth during PAX East 2017. I had this banana. Sab and I were eating breakfast before going to PAX, and we decided to pack an extra banana in case we got hungry or something. So at the Screenwave booth where we were doing this signing event for fans to come up and meet us, I had this banana, and I think I have a picture of it somewhere. I'll put it up on screen right now. But we had everybody at the panel sign it. And it's a really funny banana with a Sharpie all over it. I don't remember what happened to it. I don't think anybody ate it, but it's a very, very nice memory to have. One of my other favorite convention experiences was PAX Prime of 2015 or 2014, something like that. And that was where I first met the Super Soul Brothers. So I came to PAX with my melodica, thinking, oh, I'll play some music on somewhere and people will give me money or something. But then I saw the Super Soul Bros were there, and I was like, hey, can I play some songs with you guys? And I pulled out my melodica and we started jamming. I don't think they knew who I was at the time. Now we're pretty great friends, and we've even performed together. If you don't know, I guested with them at a set at MagFest last year. It was me, Robbie the keyboard player, Chris the drummer, Brian on guitar, and Alex on saxophone, and we had like a double saxophone funk ensemble, and it was so much fun. Probably one of the best shows I've ever played. to think that that all stemmed back from that one little encounter at PAX Prime was pretty incredible. Also, I'm pretty sure I've met him now, but Chugga Conroy Emil, that was like the first time where I had like seen him, and it was this was back when I was like a huge fanboy of Emil, and like he walked up like right next to the Super Soul Brothers and was listening to us play Sticker Brush Symphony, and I was blowing melodica, then I turned and was like, oh my goodness, that's Chugga Conroy or something like that. I didn't say that out loud, but that's what I was thinking at the time. That was a really fun experience. Hannah writes, I'm super curious, how do you get high quality made arrangements, recordings, and video editing released in a week, even when you have college? :0. Your time management and priorities is like goals. So I'm a bit of a freak when it comes to time management and scheduling my day. I schedule my entire day the day before I go to, like the night before I go to bed pretty much, and I do a pretty good job of sticking to that schedule. As long as I'm realistic about how much time I allow myself to get certain tasks done, I will usually get them done. And this has helped tremendously in college because with schedules where you have breaks between classes or when you don't have the same predictable class schedule every day like in high school, it's very helpful to visually be able to see what you need to get done in a day. And also just writing down your schedule takes away from the work of having to, constantly think of, oh, what am I going to do next? Philip writes, are your solos improvised? If so, how did you build the confidence to improvise? Currently, I am too nervous to solo in my jazz band, and I am trying to build up the courage. Well, Philip, rest assured, I think everybody was like that at some point. I know I was. I was back in like my freshman year of high school when I had a song that I even knew I had a solo in, even like 16 bars before, like my heart would start pounding super fast and I would get really, really scared of the solo. The best way to get over it is by doing it a lot, which is scary. It's the way to get over it, just by doing it. Learning how to solo more effectively should help you overcome that fear more, because you'll have some knowledge of what you're about to do and knowledge of what the music requires. Evan writes, do you think that studying game music has improved your playing in a way that, for example, jazz standards or classical etudes can't? If so, how? I'm not sure it's necessarily improved my technical sax playing, but as a musical concept, my general musical concept, yes. I say that because video game music is such a wide genre, if you even call it a genre. It's more like a type of music if you separate that from genre. What I mean is that there's jazz video game music, there is metal video game music, there is rock video game music. It's more like video game music is like a function of music, while the genre just describes the music itself. By listening to so much video game music, I've come to understand what musical tools composers use to evoke certain emotions in audiences. For example, there are a lot of similarities between like different cave and scary forest themes. Like there's a lot of ambience, usually like some percussive instrument, and often dissonance, so all these elements work together to create a certain mood. Like this is super obvious in Pokemon tracks, like Roots are, triumphant, and they've got like horns and nice soaring memorable melodies. Caves usually have weird chords and weird instruments, and they're not often melodic. The surf themes are just like usually string based and very flowing, so just being exposed to all these different types of music and understand what the music is trying to do in the context of the game, I think has really helped me understand what certain musical strategies evoke certain emotions. Terrian writes, how did you get to be so capable of sax arrangements like the harmonies in Me channel theme? I'm a tenor and barry player and absolutely love the sound of sax solos like that. Sax solos are actually not that hard to write. They're pretty formulaic once you understand the rules. There's a wonderful book called Instrumental Jazz Arranging by Mike Tomorrow, and I think there's another co-author, but the link for that will be in the description. And that is a wonderful book for understanding how to arrange jazz, and whether the context is a small ensemble or big band, or you just want to get your voicings down. It'll explain everything you need to know on how to write a good saxophone solo, or how to write a good, like a brass counter melody or something like that. I've read a lot of books on arranging and music theory, and that is one of the first books I ever read, and one of the most foundational for my style of arranging. So I highly recommend that book if you're interested. Lastly, Ash writes, do you have any future plans for competitions? Missed out on the last one. Yes. Keep an eye out on the channel this summer. That's all I'll say. And that's all the questions I chose for Insane in the Q&A number 1. If you've got questions below, please let me know, and I might give in-depth responses to those in the next Q&A. Usually I respond to all the comments on the YouTube channel, or almost all of them, and I try to address questions there as well. But if your question is particularly deep or interesting, or if I think it would benefit a lot of people, that increases the chances of me selecting that as one that I might use in the future for one of these Insane in the Q&As. So leave your comments below. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Your comments basically fuel this show, so I would really appreciate that. Thank you guys for listening to me talk, and let me know what you thought of this format as well. I hope you guys are interested in hearing me talk about some musical concepts like this, and I'd definitely like to, contribute something to the general musical community on YouTube other than just music. So, this has been Insane in the Q&A number 1. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're here for some reason you don't know I do video game covers, check out my video game covers. I think they're pretty good. All right, thank you everybody. See ya.